Hello, I'm Xander. My group's going over relationship policies in and out. Our problem statement is that over the last 6 months, there's been an influx of relationship-based complaints to the Human Resources Department, and it's just out of hand. Our report is to ensure that In and Out is not incurring any of these complaints due to policies that relate to relationships in the workplace in the corporate level. And the different subtopics that we have within our report are ethical standards in the workplace and how best to implement them. There's social boundaries in the workplace and why they are important. There's managing family business and how to control the emotions and to create success within their business. And the last one that we have is dating at work and what policies could end up working. Mine is ethical standards and how best to implement. So my main points are training employees of all levels, and then their successful implementation of the standards, and then what not to implement, along with some pros and cons. So definitions for ethical behavior. Ethical behavior is such behavior that is consistent with what society and individuals typically think are good values, and they're used in a company so that nobody goes against what's going to harm a company. And for ethical standards, the principle is that when they are followed, they promote values such as trust, good behavior, fairness, and or kindness. For company-wide training, it's there so that people can all know what the company stands for, what they are about, and what they are able to tolerate and what they don't tolerate. So the first part for ethical standards to implement a successful, I guess, list of them is to make sure that all levels are going through the same exact training, regardless of any individual situation. Because when somebody at a lower level sees that upper management isn't going through the same training, they kind of feel that they're just being picked on and that they don't think they are aware of good and bad. So it just builds a sense of partnership when everybody in the company, regardless of their position, is going through the same training. And not only that, but it kind of builds communication skills, because if you don't understand something and you need to ask somebody a question, it just makes communication happen. And then it lets you learn how to talk to people above you, or if you're above and you want to see what other people below you are thinking about the training, it just helps build that communication. And then successful ways to implement these standards. So the most important thing is to make sure that upper management is visiting, because it's easy to have a store where nobody from upper management other than your manager is there, and it kind of makes it feel like you're alone in the whole process of the business and its functionality. And if you don't see anybody, then you're not really aware of like how you're doing or how the store's doing. So it's just like, oh, why should I follow these standards? And next would be examples being set, because if you don't see anything being followed, but you're being told to follow these rules, you're not going to want to follow them. It's kind of like a herd thing. If you see one person being nice to another coworker, you're gonna be like, okay, I should be nice to them. But if you see them being mean, you're gonna be questionable at first, and then probably start acting rude to them. And since there's been so many relationship-based complaints recently, this is where this would come in handy. So if they all learn to just work with each other very platonically and get the job done, but still have fun without crossing the boundary, it's gonna like spread across the company, regardless of position, because they see that everybody's following the same rules. And with the resources being available, that's also something that can help implement these standards, because if you don't know where to go for specific things, you can't ask questions. And if you can't ask questions, chances are that you're just gonna do what you think's right, and that could be against what the company has in place for you guys. For what to implement, you're going to want to have standards that further everyone's well-being, not just the company. So you don't want something that's going to make the CEO rich, or like your manager get the biggest raise ever, not raise, but bonus. And Not only that, you just need to make sure that everybody's happy because you don't want disappointed employees going into work all grouchy. And another thing you want to make sure the standards are going to better is the company, but not at a point where it's like, okay, it's only set in place so that the company can profit. And then you also don't want to have something that's completely out of reach. You want something that's very easily incorporated that employees will see and be like, okay, I can follow that. It's not that much of a change. I'm going to make sure I do that. And it's going to not only better myself, but it's going to better my coworkers and the whole company as a whole. And then what you don't want to integrate is something that's going to be of advantage to the company. You don't want anything that's going to hurt customers because in the end, customers are what's driving your business, and you don't want to make one rich or damage reputations because that's when you end up in the news for the wrong thing and it's just going to ruin everybody. All right. So some pros of having ethical standards in the workplace. So it's going to cause workers to be happy because they can see that everybody's doing the same exact thing and sorry. We see that everybody's doing the same thing and everybody's having fun at work while still following rules. And because you guys will be following rules, there will be less complaints. So when there's less complaints, you're going to most likely see less of your manager being angry and picking on certain individuals because they don't want to be getting complaints about a way that two people in the workplace were interacting with each other that seems inappropriate to the outside world. And not only is it going to do that, but it's going to increase productivity because when everybody's following what needs to be done and making sure that their coworkers are feeling safe and that they can go into work and not have to worry about any sort of discomfort coming off of actions from other coworkers, they're going to be more productive and not have to worry about any of that. But some cons are that some people may not want to comply with specific standards. It may be too out of reach for them specifically, but then that's when you'd have to like pull them out and sit them down to just talk to them and understand where they're coming from. And another thing is that these clients can cause, I mean, the customers can sense tension. And when employees are mad about having to change what they've known their whole career at a place, it's going to make them mad and customers are going to sense that. All right. And I would just recommend that in order to implement these successfully, it's a thing of communication. As long as everybody's communicating with each other and understanding how others feel, that's how that's going to be easily incorporated into the company. And just building trust, they should have company outings, get to know each other, have little games within work that are work related, but just make work fun because it builds trust and it's going to make changes that are happening a lot easier. And lastly would be research from higher ups or even other people at the same level. It's going to get different perspectives on different things that are happening and see why specific complaints were made. Because if you just have one side of the story, it's easily to be hostile towards a specific person because you don't like what they did and that complaint. So as long as you can just do research and see what's going to work and what's not going to work, that's ideally what's going to start changing the company. All right, and that's the end for mine. And now off to Trisha.
Thank you, Xander. In this section, I will be talking about social boundaries in the workplace and why they are important. My main points will address the effects of social boundaries on employees and ways employees can approach social boundaries in the workplace, the effects on the organization and the responsibility of an organization, and lastly, supporting and promoting the implementations of social boundaries in the workplace. So let's look at the trends on in and out employees. Over the past 6 months, 60% of the complaints relating to social life at In-N-Out mentioned the inability to set effective boundaries, with some reporting difficulty balancing between work and personal duties and difficulty addressing ignorance and rudeness from coworkers. Other than that, there is a significant amount of employees who reported feeling burned out and exhausted, which lowered their productivity at work. Bringing the complaints to consideration, we believe that clear and effective social boundaries are essential to the employee's mental health and are beneficial to the company in the long run. So for our definitions, social boundaries refer to an established set of rules for oneself and others to help an individual understand his or her roles and responsibilities at work. As you can see, we can interpret social boundaries as either boundary between self and work duties or boundaries between coworkers or supervisors. The concept of organizational culture is also known as workplace culture or corporate culture, which refers to the social environment as experienced by its employees. Work-life balance is an individual's ability to meet and separate work and personal commitments, with work-life integration meaning when an individual brings work into non-work domains, and work-life segmentations are sometimes called work-life alignment, meaning when an individual separates their work from their personal life and choosing when not to work. Lastly, workplace incivility refers to the low-intensity bad behavior with the ambiguous intent to harm a target, in violation of workplace norms for mutual respect. Let's talk about how social boundaries affect employees. Without creating and implementing boundaries for themselves, employees are less likely to effectively determine when to work and when to step away from work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're unhappy with their work-life balance and job though, because some folks do enjoy working and strive to achieve certain rewards from working hard. However, it damages these employees' mental health, create more stress, and pull them away from their own personal duties. In another context, a lack of clear social boundaries for others leaves employees vulnerable to workplace instability and potentially a toxic work environment. The inability to address ignorance or incivility is usually neglected within the workplace culture due to perceived norms or the employee's internalizations and convergence into the culture. Here are some approaches in and out employees can take to strategize their boundaries at work. When at home, employees should set rules for themselves and adhere to those rules. For example, not answering long and detailed emails after 7 p.m. They should have a support system among coworkers to keep each other accountable and share experiences. They should also set a minimum and maximum amount of work hours and set a goal to finish daily tasks within that time frame only. When at work, employees should know their values. They should create boundaries of what they won't tolerate and communicate those boundaries with coworkers. If a boundary is violated, they should disengage from the negative interaction and address it right away to the perpetrator first, then bringing up to a counselor or advisor as last resort. Lastly, they should always check themselves to see if their actions are creating a positive atmosphere for others. We're going to move on to the effects of social boundaries on the organization. The lack of social boundaries is often overlooked by upper management due to exhaustions and burnout in employees being seen as small costs to the company, or even triggering productivity out of work addiction sometimes. In a short run, the lack of social boundaries doesn't really affect the organization as a whole. However, these negative impacts on employees can reduce productivity at work and lower employee engagement and retention in the long run, which will heavily impact the firm's attempt to profit maximization. Organizations and firms cannot afford to let these employees navigate these issues on their own, or merely come up with temporary solutions to support several employees with these issues. Because of that, we believe that creating and effectively implementing boundaries should be tackled on an organizational level. The roles of the organization include shifting the norms within the organizational culture so that employees don't feel obligated to fit into invisible standards that aren't talked about in the company. The company should create opportunities for employees to engage in making workplace communication policies and create a space for employees to voice their concerns without the fear of being punished for doing so. Lastly, we recommend in and out management to promote and support the use of social boundaries in the corporate setting by setting and enforcing work-life balance guidelines for employees to follow, creating a support system for employees beyond their peers by designating employees to trained counselors and advisors within their department, and hosting monthly workshops to maintain awareness about social boundaries and hosting focus groups for employees. With support from management, employees can take actions in implementing given work-life balance strategies, utilizing the support system to cope with and address any instability or hostility, and utilizing focus groups and and workshops to voice unaddressed concerns or engage in changing workplace communication policies. In and Out Corporate can expect a reduction in the number of complaints to Human Resources Department and a boost to employees' work performance by carrying out these recommendations. Employees will also be able to lessen their stress levels, prevent a toxic work environment, and able to effectively define their roles and responsibility at work and with others. And with that, I will pass it to Dennis to talk about managing family business.
Thanks, Trisha. Hello, my name is Dennis, and I'm going to be discussing how to control emotions and create success in the family business environment. Having policies in place that cover family relationships in the workplace will allow employees to control their emotions and create success for themselves and the company. I will be covering why In-N-Out should improve policies on family relationships, why new policies and guidelines should reflect family relationships, what forms of communication In-N-Out should promote to its family-related employees, and the pros and cons of implementing policies that cover family relationships. To begin, I will cover some definitions. First, the term family business is used to describe businesses that are owned by family members who are connected through family ties. Second, the term family relationship is used as relatedness by blood, marriage, or adoption. Third, firm satisfaction will be used as a measure of how employees within an organization are positively or negatively satisfied with the company they are working for. Fourth, firm performance is defined as a measurement of how well a company is doing based on the company's profitability and stock price. And finally, turnover is the number of hired people within a period to replace those leaving or dropped from the workplace. Okay, so why should new policies and guidelines reflect family relationships? In-N-Out is a family-owned business, and there are numerous individuals at the corporate level that are related through family ties. Family dynamics are different among each individual family, so ways to conduct business are often different. Numerous owners of small businesses often at times do not consider implementing rules and guidelines that control family relationships because they may be overconfident in their family's bond strength. Policies and guidelines that reflect family relationships will create a set of rules and standards for family members to follow that will give them a sense of boundaries at the workplace. According to Patricia M. Cole, family businesses incorporate two competing systems of family and business, where the family context encourages nurture and acceptance, and the business context encourages productivity and performance. By having a sense of boundaries and separating family and business context, conflict among family members will be reduced, and the overall family business experience will be enhanced. Now, why should In-N-Out as a company reflect family relationships? Since numerous individuals in the corporate level of In-N-Out are family related, disputes that occur can be detrimental to both the company and family relationships. If there are no policies or guidelines that reflect family relationships, the firm will experience reduced success, reduced employee satisfaction, and firm termination. Families are also at risk with a higher chance of having the family connection be broken. According to the Cambridge Enterprise Group, a consulting group in the United States that helps aid family relationships in the family business, there are 4 stages of family conflict. The conflicts begin with minor disagreement, which can escalate to serious dispute, then destabilizing conflict, and at the peak, warfare. If families reach the warfare stage, they will experience hatred, intense hostility, desire to injure, permanent damage, the destruction of assets, and broken relationships. The stages of conflict will less likely occur among family members if there is a set of policies and guidelines that manage their relationships. Policies that reflect relationships will maximize firm success, maximize employee satisfaction with the company, the preservation of family relationships, and the threat of the organization being terminated will be reduced. Now, what kind of communication can In-N-Out promote to its employees and peers that are family related? Through new policies and guidelines, In-N-Out should promote honest communication and attentive listening among its family related employees. Honest communication will allow family members to easily identify problems that is causing discord among each other. Policies must also punish dishonesty to allow stakeholders to determine which course of action to take on an individual or group that may have unjustifiable intent. Honesty will also promote improved coordination and will allow family members to strengthen trust among each other. Honesty must also be paired with patient and attentive listening to reduce tension among family members. Patiently listening to another family member's concern will allow the best decisions for the company to be made. When family members do not take another's concern seriously, conflict can arise and meaningless feedback that is emotionally hurtful may occur. Along with honest communication, family members within a business need to clearly identify which jobs and roles must be performed. Adhering to set job descriptions and having mutual agreements on added or deducted job duties will reduce the likelihood of conflict and arguments from occurring. According to an article titled How to Manage the Challenges of a Family Business by Lisa Evans, establishing boundaries and having clearly defined roles, responsibilities, and authority can determine whether a family business will succeed or fail. So now, what are the pros and cons of implementing policies that cover family relationships in the workplace? Firstly, there may be a sense of unease and discord among family-related members in the workplace. Individuals may feel like they are being restricted from doing what they normally do, and transitions from long-term habits are usually difficult to adapt to. The second con is the cost of implementation. Of course, it will be cheaper to not spend money and have no policies to develop or implement, so implementation of new policies may be costly. The pros, however, outweigh the cons of implementation. First, implementing policies that reflect family relationships will save the company from great amounts of future costs and damages. Family conflict at the corporate level may result in unwanted fines and lawsuits that may occur. Second, having these guidelines will ensure company success by retaining key family members in the business. Employees related through family bonds are also key components in running the firm and oftentimes have the experience and ideas necessary to keep the organization successful. And finally, having these policies will preserve family relationships. Implementing policies on family relationships will show employees that the company is serious about preserving personal relationships, which in turn will lead to increased job satisfaction and decreased turnover rates. In conclusion, we recommend that In-N-Out creates policies that cover family relationships. These policies will benefit In-N-Out for the better, as it will control behaviors and emotions, create boundaries among family members in the workplace, encourage honest communication and transparency, save money, relationships, and the organization, and ensure success for everyone. Now on to David to discuss dating at work and what policies can work.
Hey everyone, continuing my portion of our report is going to be on the subtopic of dating at work and what policies can work. In-N-Out's corporate office has had an influx of complaints to their human resource department, and my section of the report wants to help mitigate any possible issues that may have stemmed from dating at work. Before getting into the bulk of details, I would like to help everyone understand where my research and analysis is coming from by starting off with trends of dating at work. First off, dating at work. Do bad trends outweigh the good? In short, yes. Statistically speaking, in a report from my research, more than half of employees in the workforce have engaged in office romance. Interestingly enough, a large portion of those people have reported that he or she does not know their own company's dating policy. This is where I want to transition into the trends that I have found from my research. Some trends of relationships and dating in the workplace follow cases of sexual harassment and have contaminated many work environments. Also, random hookups with coworkers causing consent issues, executives stepping down due to having affairs, and businesses formulating dating contracts to hold employees accountable. All of these being alarming trends. Now, I, for one, do not want to harp on relationships with coworkers. However, in lieu of my research, these were the pros and cons that caught my attention. Yes, as you can see, there are way less pros than cons. Research of pros have shown long-lasting relationships in marriage, and some relationships at work lifting work performance. Some good pros, however, the cons seem to be overpowering. Some cons being couples can be distracted from work when working with their partner at the office. This can lead to a number of things. One being favoritism over others. This can cause gossip around the workplace. Another can be managers that engage in workplace romance can affect their subordinates. Overall, these things can be harmful to a firm or company. Now, going into some quick terms and definitions. Business etiquette, which is an accepted set of manners of professionalism. Leadership, which obviously is a person that acquires an action to lead a group of people. Without proper leadership, most of what I researched would fail. And lastly, cultural policies, which are values that companies find important to carry on as an organization as a whole. Now, policies regarding dating at work is difficult to narrow down, mainly because most company policies are very different from each other, and also the statistics aren't there because companies do their analysis in-house. However, this is my guide for In-N-Out's corporate office to consider in order to decrease their complaints from recent months. First, adding business etiquette training that focuses on dating at work can properly educate employees about relationships with coworkers. Stopping people from dating at work is unrealistic, so what can help? As I mentioned before, business etiquette is a form of accepted professional manners. Things such as dining with business partners may call for business etiquette training. Dining seems simple, but some may not approach it in a professional manner. So as far as dating goes, dating at work can be a way more complex scenario. Long hours at work form social bonds between people, so business etiquette training that focuses on dating at work can help educate employees to properly evaluate and approach these scenarios before engaging. With plenty of business etiquette training services out there, any company can customize training the way that they want their employees to consider for dating at work. Properly educating their staff can make for a major business improvement. So how do we do this? Well, training of this nature falls on management and how they want to plan and implement this. So moving on, per the 2019 industry training report, companies spend an average of $1,286 per employee and 42 hours of training. An online training marketplace company, TrainUp, had huge numbers jump for requests of services from 267 in 2017 to 2,150 in 2018. So clearly companies know they need to educate their employees in some way. That's where management comes to play. Management must take these scenarios seriously and force a proposal for a new training. The numbers speak for themselves, and if In-N-Out can shift their averages of dollars and hours in their training for employees with business etiquette on dating at work, this training implementation could be extremely effective for employees. Now, after planning a business etiquette training, focusing on dating at work is in order, the training should not be implemented differently between the levels of hierarchy in the company. However, accountability per levels of hierarchy should. There have been many trends of executives having to step down due to intimate relationships that occurred with coworkers and have even ruined marriages due to affairs. In a journal from my research, the former CEO of Boeing jeopardized their operations due to having an affair with a subordinate in their company. Not only did business operations get rattled, but lower level employees voiced that they felt little credibility of their functioning department. This is why everyone should be trained the same, but leaders should be held accountable at a higher standard. Effective leadership from upper level positions goes a long way when it comes to implementing a new training and also practicing those norms. So, lastly, what policies can work for dating? As far as a single policy goes, I do not believe that there is one. However, a cultural policy has been known to lift employees' morale and motivate workers to accomplish goals. This is because of company values built within their organization. A cultural policy focuses on a healthy work environment at all levels. For example, the Norwegian company Meltwater has been voted one of the most desired places to work in 2018. They have a motto acronym called MER, which translates to fun, number one, and respect. I mentioned this company specifically because their management goes above and beyond accommodating their employees with such things such as work strength finder tests, 360-degree feedback programs, and even forecasts for employee turnover, all to ensure the happiness of their employees. This is a perfect example of promoting a cultural policy for employees to thrive in. If In-N-Out can follow these steps to restructure their system similarly to how I mentioned, there is no doubt that issues of relationships at work will be minimized. And just to recap, I do not believe that there is just one policy that could work. However, creating a cultural policy for values within a company can make for a huge gain. So, my recommendations. My recommendation is to integrate business etiquette training that focuses on dating at work to properly educate employees and make changes to fully invest keeping employees happy with a new cultural policy. By doing so, it creates and maintains a comfortable work climate and boosts work performance and satisfaction. So, in conclusion, we recommend that In-N-Out implement policies that cover all 4 topics regarding relationship issues and use these policies to train employees through mandatory seminars. In-N-Out should also train designated counselors and advisors and assign employees as mentors to these individuals, and then we will provide a questionnaire at the end of these trainings for employees to fill out and send back to HR. This will give management sufficient feedback to help create a better work environment. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this helped. Have a great rest of your day.